At the beginning of the third day, Roxas heads over to the usual spot to find a note left by Hayner that reads, "Meet at the station. Today's the day we hit the beach, and don't sweat about the money." I would be telling him to sweat about the money. Reddit post, "Am I the asshole for blaming my friend when he loses all of the money we spent all day earning?" I think the comments would be supportive. On our way to the station, we see Pence and Olette in the distance before time completely freezes. Roxas runs towards them, but Naminé appears directly in front of him and almost gets tackled to the ground like a quarterback. She says, "Hi, Roxas," and Roxas is like, "Hi," sheepishly, like a boy who's never talked to a girl before while the flow of time is completely halted around them. He goes to say, "And you are," but Naminé just puts her palm in his face like, "Shut up, I came to hear myself talk." She says she wanted to meet him at least once. Then she just turns around and walks off before time resumes. Pence says Olette dragged him along to go shopping, which implies that they weren't a part of Hayner's station plan, and she asks if Roxas wants to come, but he's still a little frazzled from being the victim of time rape, so he stutters a bit and they just assume he doesn't want to go, and they leave. Roxas turns toward the direction he saw Naminé walk, which is around a corner, and wonders if she went to the haunted mansion, even though half the rest of the town is also that way, and she could be in the frickin' Moogle shop for all we know. Roxas heads towards the mansion, but in the woods, a dark portal opens and more Zipper Boys come out to attack him. Roxas runs back to town through the sandlot in view of Cypher, who calls out, "Hey, chicken wuss!" Because that's the type of trash talk Square Enix was working with back in 2004. But Cypher and the gang see Roxas's slithering pursuers and square up hella quick to take him on. They might have better luck if they actually did anything except stand there, though. Their group gets surrounded, but time freezes yet again. Except this time it's just them, while Roxas and the creatures are still aging like fine wine. Naminé shouts from the rooftops for Roxas to use the Keyblade, because he apparently forgot that's a thing, but instead, a jumpsuit lunges at him and Roxas lifts his hands to guard, but he's inexplicably transported to a strange new yet familiar place, standing on top of Sora's stained glass kneecap. Here he gets to make the same choice his predecessor made before him, of a sword, a shield, or a long, stiff rod. I picked the sword again cause strength, and then it's basically the same tutorial as in Kingdom Hearts 1, but with blondes and nobodies instead. And jumping up the stairs isn't as satisfying. After fighting Kingdom Hearts 2's version of Darkseid with a very fashionable scarf, Roxas falls into darkness only for Naminé to reach in and pull him back out. He wakes up in a room covered in ghostly ejaculate. The room, that is. And Naminé is sitting on like a big shelf or something, I don't know. She says her name is Naminé, which we already knew at this point, but Roxas didn't. She asks if he remembers his true name, which harkens back to the first conversation of the game on that dark beach, but she's interrupted by the hooded man who stole all his money before. He says it's best Roxas doesn't know the truth. The Black Hood summons a dark portal behind Roxas, who immediately turns around and lets his guard down for way too long, and then gets pushed into it by the back of the head, like you'd do to your kid brother or a younger friend if you were trying to shove him towards somewhere he didn't want to go. The shove placement on the head is a choice, and it's a meaningful hint to consider in regard to who the hooded figure ultimately turns out to be. Roxas ends up back in the sandlot, with Cypher's gang taking victory photos for having driven off the white dudes. While celebrating, Hayner, Pence, and Olette appear in the distance and see what looks like Roxas hanging out with Cypher's gang instead of them, so Hayner scoffs, turns around, and runs off. Roxas chases after them, back to the usual spot, and tries to explain that it wasn't what they thought, that he hadn't ditched them. Then he asks how the beach was, since that's what they were supposed to be doing, but Olette says they didn't go, because it wouldn't be the same without him. I'm missing the part where she and Pence were involved in this plan, since they went shopping while all the bullshit was happening to Roxas, which makes them equally MIA, so Hayner should be giving everyone the third degree here. But yeah, bummer. Another failed beach trip that's also Roxas's fault. This dude's got 99 problems, and a beach is at least 2 of them. Roxas suggests they go tomorrow, but Hayner says he promised he'd be somewhere, referencing the promise he made to Roxas about making the finals in the upcoming struggle tournament, which I didn't mention in the last episode because I forgot. But Roxas forgot that too, so he just kinda sucks lately. Hayner just says, "I'm outta here," and walks off before the screen goes to static, as it's been known to do, to say restoration at 48%. In the computer room, the bloody ragman laments his lack of control over Naminé, who had gone rogue during that day and did a bunch of stuff she wasn't supposed to in regard to interacting with Roxas. But he regains composure and assures himself that what happens to Roxas doesn't matter, as long as Naminé accomplishes their goal of restoring Sora's heart. But now we awaken on the fourth and most exciting day, which really should have been the last day. They could have cut some stuff out and accelerated the pacing a bit. Nobody would have minded because it's the day of the struggle tournament, and the Seven Wonders garbage that happens afterwards is the most tedious part of the whole franchise. But more on that later when we're forced to actually do it. The preliminaries for the struggle tournament apparently already happened, and the four main finalists came out to be Roxas, Hayner, Cypher, and to everyone's surprise, Vivi, one of Cypher's gang, who apparently isn't usually known for that kind of thing. They'll have to fight each other in 2 distinct rounds to become the winner, for the chance to face off against the previous tournament champion, Setzer, who's like 20 years older than everyone and has a cat that doesn't really like his face, apparently. Before we listen to the rules, Hayner's still giving us the cold shoulder, but it turns out we have to face him in the first round. The tension is palpable, and Roxas looks at his friend through sad boy eyes and says he's sorry for yesterday. Hayner plays it cool, like, "You're still worried about that? You need to learn to let that stuff go." But like he was actually mad before this, so this is sort of gaslighting, but whatever. The mood is lifted, and we proceed to absolutely fuck his shit up. Like he was smiling before the match started, but Roxas wipes that thing off his face right quick. In Struggle, you attack your opponent to make them drop orbs, and you gather the orbs. Whoever has the most orbs at the end wins. Hayner fights with no discipline whatsoever, and every swing he does leaves him wide open. It's like playing Super Smash Bros. Against someone who only does forward smash. Like, I'm gonna punish you, my man. I'm not just gonna run into your nonsense every time. So I win with a score of 184-0. Never enter another tournament again, dude. I'm glad we made amends as friends right before I publicly humiliated you beyond reputational repair, you fucking loser. Hayner just lays on the ground afterwards like he can't believe what just happened, and if I was him, I'd ask to be buried there, because there's no coming back from this. As we're exiting the stage, Cypher and Vivi come up on opposite sides. We share a look with Vivi, and other than the fact that he looks like a Shadow Heartless dressed like an Abercrombie wizard, something's not right with him. He laughs devilishly, like a puppet plotting a murder, and on the other side, Cypher looks angry. The match starts in cutscene fashion, and Vivi charges right at Cypher with no hesitation. Unleashing an onslaught of blows, Cypher tries desperately to dodge or block. After successfully countering with a strike of his own, Cypher knocks one orb out of Vivi's pocket, or wherever they keep them, and makes a mad dash to retrieve it. But right before he gets there, Vivi intercepts with a spinning blowjob and makes Cypher bust out a load of his own orbs, knocking him flat, and I guess ending the match for some reason, even though it had only been like 15 seconds. Cypher comes up to us and says, "That's not Vivi." As he walks out of the sandlot with his gang in tow, he says in the most perfectly voice-acted line of the entire game, "Thrash him." I mean it. I think that's the best line delivery in potentially the whole franchise, which isn't saying much because it's Kingdom Hearts and half the cast is Disney Channel has-beens who phoned it in, but the cocktail of anger, betrayal, and pain while trying to hold himself back is just music to my voice-acting ears. Now we face Vivi for the final spot, and this thing spam rolls around the arena like we're a Dark Souls boss. He's tough to chase down, but if you play defensive and guard his attacks, you can counterattack just like Cypher so kindly demonstrated for us beforehand. We also make him drop way more orbs than Cypher could, because Vivi had plot armor that last match, which is no longer the case. As we go in for the finishing blow, time freezes yet again, and Vivi transforms into a nobody. Not that he was anybody before, but now it's like, yeah. The Keyblade comes back to say hello, we kill some more nobodies, and get a round of applause from a new black hooded figure on the scene, who we can immediately tell is different from any of the ones we've seen previously. He introduces himself as Axel, and acts like Roxas should remember who he is. Axel remarks about Roxas's blank memory, and when Roxas asks what's going on, he mentions the town being someone's creation, and that they don't have time for a chat, so Roxas is coming with him, conscious or not, if he wants to hear the story. They fight, and Axel wields his chakrams like a drunk man stumbling home from the bar, but I defeat him quickly because he has like no HP. Suddenly, Mr. Tampon appears and tells Roxas that Axel speaks nonsense. Axel counters back, telling Roxas not to let him deceive him, and then it just devolves into them both shouting his name over and over like, "Roxas! Roxas! 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 Roxas!" Roxas eventually can't take it anymore and screams out the names of his friends for no reason, which makes both dudes disappear, and time goes back to the way it was for even less of a reason. Vivi falls over and seems to have had some sense knocked back into him and doesn't seem to know where he is or why he's there. It's now time for the championship fight against Setzer, a grown-ass man fighting against teenagers to retain his fangirl club. Is this my future? Before the match, Setzer turns to Roxas, calling him Rucksack, which is honestly a good one, and asks him to throw the match. saying he'll make it worth his while. Bro, you're 40. Skill up. What have you been doing with your life if you're afraid to lose an IRL fight to a boy who doesn't have his learner's permit yet? Those scars are definitely from your cat. You probably tried to bribe him too. Granted, bribery does make up most interactions between cat owners and their cats. In battle, this guy has some impressive moves. His thrusts would make any woman cry, and he can fly through the air like a superhero while twirling his club. In all my 20 or so playthroughs, my competitive pride has never allowed me to lose to this man to see what would happen, so I clean his clock like usual, and he walks off stage in disgrace at my righteous victory. The champion belt wouldn't fit me if I gained 300 pounds, but it's mine, and as a gang, we celebrate our victory on top of the clock tower by vandalizing the winner's trophy, giving each of the 4 round crystals to a different member of the group. They hold their pieces up to the sun and watch the glint shine through and blind each of them permanently. Olette breaks out the ice cream and Roxas gets up to grab one but stumbles and falls off the tower. No, really. The screen fades to static as he is presumably smashed onto the concrete below. Neat.